So Barbara, you and I are on the same wavelength. Today is the 1-year anniversary of the death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, at the hands of a white police officer. This week also was the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. And we all now know that this nation of ours has spiraled into a path this past year that brings us all deep sorrow and grief. From Ferguson to Baltimore to Mother Emanuel, there has been racial strife in a way that I don't think I remember seeing. And so it has thrown me back on myself to reflect a little bit. I was born in 1964, which was the year the Civil Rights Act was passed. And as I think about my own life, I wonder how it is that I have arranged it in such a way that I don't have one single friend of color. The most racially diverse place I go is the pool at the YMCA. And this lack of diversity in my own personal life has nothing to do with lack of opportunity. I went to college in the 80s at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. There were 44,000 students there from all over the world when I went to school there. Did I make one friend that didn't look like me? Not a one. Then I went on to law school in Virginia at Washington and Lee School of Law. Ever wonder what Robert E. Lee did after he lost the Civil War? He became president of Washington College, where they added his name to the title of the school, and he is still revered today. 1987, I was 21 or something like that, and 22 maybe, and I went to the first social gathering that the law school put on. And we are in front of this beautiful colonnade of Jeffersonian architecture, and we're all in dresses and hats, and the men are in their, striped jackets and white shoes. And all the servers behind the bar bringing hors d'oeuvres on trays, black men in white jackets with white gloves. And at 21, I think I looked at that and thought, what an interesting, societal throwback. Did I ever actually look in the eyes of the man giving me my Chardonnay? Or look at the hand covered in the white glove and realize that was a real human being with a real life? Not once. I had one friend in law school. No, I can't say she was a friend. I had one acquaintance in law school who was a black woman. And when she asked where I was going to look for a job after graduation, I said Vermont. She looked at me straight in the eye and said, "Whitest state in the Union." Did not faze me. Nothing actually hit my brain when she said that. Ended up in Maine, probably the second whitest state in the Union. Came down to Connecticut, worked in several jobs as an attorney, both private firms and the state. I had one colleague who was a black woman. Did I ever once ask her about her life? Did I find out what it took to be a black female attorney in the 90s? Did I ever try to see personal connection between me and Vivian? Not once. And it's too late. She died about a decade ago. And then I went to seminary, Hartford Seminary and Yale. Both incredibly diverse places. Hartford Seminary has religious diversity, they have racial diversity. Yale has all sorts of diversity, people from all around the world. Did I make one friend, just one friend, that didn't look like me? Not one. What's up with that? I'm not quite sure yet. But I'm on a path of figuring it out. And I am grateful that I go to this church. Because some of you might know that in the fall, guided by Charlie and the deacons, we are going to start together a discussion about race. And I am glad to journey on this with you, because I obviously have a ways to go. In September, Reverend Marilyn Kendricks is coming to speak with us. I know Marilyn. She was a year behind me at Yale. She is a black woman who comes, a minister, comes and talks to people about race. And so she'll be with us third weekend, I think, in September. Be here for that. Be here for that. Put that on your calendars. Be here with me. Then we're going to read a book together, those of you that are willing to open your hearts and your minds with us. It is, let me get the title right, Dear White America by Tim Wise. And we're going to have multiple discussions about that book after church, led by the deacons. Then we're going to go see a discussion on racism at the Connecticut Forum in December. Those of you that want to come, we have a block of tickets that we have purchased. We're going to be going with some of our friends from First Church. And we're going to open our minds and our hearts a little more and start some personal reflection. And maybe you guys are all ahead of me already. But if you are, then lead me. Lead me. Lead me down the path that's talked about in Ephesians. Ephesians is a fascinating book. It is so timely around this discussion because the purpose of that book was to bring together disparate races, the Jews and the Gentiles, and form them into one community, a new community where barriers have been broken down, where violence has ceased, where divisions are overcome, and a new humanity is created. It says in the second chapter that Jesus has brought peace by creating a new humanity without division. And the purpose of that book, then, is to encourage our hearts and give us what we need to make that happen, to bring peace to our communities. And isn't that what we need today so desperately? Peace in our streets. Peace in our workplace. Peace in our churches. Now, these words in Ephesians have been around for 2,000 years. So I looked around to see if there was any evidence recently that anyone's been listening. Has anyone been listening to the words of how to bring peace, constructively manage our anger, work so that we can give to the needy, act with kindness to all? Those are the words that Heather read for us. Has anyone been listening? And so I am writing my sermon earlier this week and going, gosh, I need an example. And lo and behold, up on my email feed comes an example. Don't you love when that happens? But it came from a place I would have never expected. It wasn't a place that I was looking at all. I love the Holy Spirit. It gets in there and nudges me around. I wasn't even looking here, and I get my message for you. You see, in the month of July was the holy month of Ramadan for the Muslim faith. And three Muslim organizations, responded to the murders at Mother Emanuel and the fires set in the black churches in the South. There were just, I don't know if you saw it on the news, but there were so many fires in black Christian churches in the South after that murder. And so these three Muslim organizations got together and sought to raise $10,000 in order to rebuild some of these churches. And within days, they hit that mark. And so they upped it. And they kept upping the levels of their goal. And by the end of Ramadan, something like 2 weeks later, they had raised $100,000. $100,000 to help rebuild black Christian churches. Now, these are people that reached across religious divides. These are people that reached across, on many occasions, racial divides. And they did exactly what Jesus, or what Paul talks about in Ephesians. They worked to help those who are needy. They acted in kindness. And in this beautiful full circle to where we started this morning, they have decided to take that $100,000 and give it to an Episcopal church and their building fund that they are putting together for this purpose in St. Louis, Missouri, all of 13.6 miles away from Ferguson. And so, my friends, we have a good example of what we need to do. We are told exactly how we are to act. And we have each other now on the same path. And so I ask you to work with me in this coming year, to look inside of your hearts, to together journey on this path where we can be more Christ-like, more truly a Christian church together, where we can actually become that one humanity that Paul talks about in Ephesians. I look forward to growing with you.